Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And I am so excited about today's guest, Lindsay Nahmiache. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, nice to see you.
Yes, great to see you too. And our conversation, we met at Deals Exchange, which is a conference inside entrepreneur organization that we both belong to. And it was all about making deals, but it's either you sell and buy a business, but it's also growing your business through deals or meeting people, networking. So there's a lot of aspects in terms of deals. And you were one of the speakers. You shared your story. It's a beautiful story about yourself as an entrepreneur. And I thought, okay, you got to be on my podcast because first of all, I have so many questions that I want to ask you. And I want our listeners to listen to it and really see the power of a decision, the power of being uncomfortable, the power of pushing your limits. And that's what our conversation is going to be about.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'm going to, first of all, of course, I have to introduce you formally. So I'm going to read a bio. So from a month of silence, living in a Buddhist monastery in Nepal, to then executing an A-list radio launch with Richard Branson. Lindsay, you are a serial entrepreneur that you love pushing the limits of human potential. You're a founder of an international marketing agency and a biotech skincare brand. You believe that if you aren't a little bit uncomfortable, you aren't playing big enough. And that's really what I took from that talk that you did, is about dreaming big, doing big, and executing it. So let's start with, I have to ask you the question about the monastery. That's something I didn't know about until I read your bio. This is something you didn't share with me before. So tell me and the listeners about that experience.
Okay, I'll try and summarize it so it's not so long. So I ended up living in India by accident for 2 years, and I was working in Bollywood in the film industry in Mumbai. And every 6 months, I had to leave the country to do a visa renewal to get it stamped. So I went to Nepal for a regular visa renewal. And when I went back to pick up my passport, they said, oh no, sorry, we shipped it back to London where the original visa had come from. And so I had no passport and I was stuck in Nepal. I couldn't go back to India. And so I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know how long it's going to be. They're like, it's probably going to be about a month to 6 weeks. So I went to a coffee shop and there was an advertisement to go to do a silent Buddhist course in the Kopan monastery in Nepal. And so I didn't know what else I was going to do. So I ripped off the piece of paper and called the number. And, a couple of days later, I was in a Buddhist monastery, which ended up being a pivotal moment in my life because I was always into meditation and mindfulness, but little bits. And then this kind of just took it to a whole new level. And I think it's honestly been the most transformational part of my career journey, but also just my personal journey, because now that ability to tap into, and I don't care what religion, I'm born Jewish, grew up Christian, studied Buddhism, it doesn't matter. They're all going to the same thing in my mind. But that ability to tap into knowing and answers and creativity is like the secret weapon of business success and marketing success and any success. You can come up with the craziest marketing campaigns when you just get quiet and listen and connect the dots. So anyways, that's how that ended up being. And I'm a chatter, I'm a marketer. And I couldn't believe I was silent for that long, but I loved it. It was an incredible experience and just random. But I think sometimes the most important things in life are random.
Absolutely. And that's what shapes you. That's an incredible experience. So thank you for sharing. Now let's go share with the listeners your story of how you started your marketing agency. I mean, you told me that, and I was like, wow, okay, the world has to hear that.
So the marketing company, so I mentioned I'd lived in India. So I was in London before, in England for 4 years, then India. And then I went back home to Canada at the time, and like no one would hire me because, they're just like, oh, international experience. It's not worth anything. And I went for job interviews and all this stuff. And then so I just started doing little contract work. At that point I was doing music videos with India, with Canada, and I just started taking on contracts, and I was like Googling how to write press releases. I didn't know what I was doing. And then we just started to grow. And then I met my business partner, and she'd gone to communication school. She knew what she was doing in that sense. And so we partnered, and then one of our first few clients ended up being Virgin. Richard Branson's, it's the radio station group. And so we were launching their social media channels for them, because this is back in the day. They didn't have social media channels back then. And it was wild. Like it was the right place at the right time.
Tell that story. How did that happen?
So back in the day, I was young then, 16 years old, and so social media was just coming out. People were starting to use it for business. And so they looked to young people, as we do, as saying, oh, you must know social media. And I was like, yeah, I know social media. And so then all of a sudden there we were launching the social channels. And then, and we got to meet Richard, which was great. He flew into town, and just listening to him talk about, like, it's still the tagline for the company today: storytelling is everything. Because he says the power of marketing and the power of story, and that ability to transcend the ages and be memorable and all of that. So yeah, that was it. Again, everything happens for a reason somehow. But obviously a lot of hustle and a lot of hard work that goes into it also. But there's a little bit of magic and a little bit of luck that you just have to. I think there's magic and luck all the time. People are just sometimes too scared to take the chance and the opportunity. That's why I talk a lot about, learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because
Right.
taking chances on that, what looks like good luck, or, that's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of people aren't more successful because they haven't learned to flex that muscle of being okay, being uncomfortable. I've failed a lot. Like, it's not that everything works out. Like,
Yeah, and it's not just luck. I mean, it's just like one of the things that really resonated with me is when you were asked, okay, do you know how to do social media? Because that image of like, oh yeah, you are young and you know how to do social media. You could have said, no, I don't. But instead you go, of course I do. And then you figure it out. So I think it's that attitude of like the can-do attitude that creates it's not luck that you were just there. Yes, it is the right place, the right time. That's the way it looks at it. You can look at it if you look at it backward and you go, oh yeah, I mean, hindsight is always 2020. That was just there. But you also had that attitude. You weren't afraid of saying yes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that then the more you do that in life, and the more you do that in business, even for business owners, like our clients that are the most successful of our clients are the ones that take a risk. Like, we make clients very uncomfortable in the marketing world, right? Because they're like big brands, publicly listed companies, and we're like, hey, we think you should do this. And their C-suite's like, no, we shouldn't do that. And we're like, no, you need to do that to maintain relevancy. And so everyone needs to be okay with being a little bit uncomfortable in order to push the boundaries and grow. And I think the best brands have that healthy, you don't want to be too risky, but you have to have that healthy balance of taking some risk at the right time.
Absolutely. So how do you overcome that? If you have an idea for a client and you go, you know what, we have to just raise above everything, right? I mean, you have to be noticed, and in order to be noticed, right, today you have to do something that is really bold or different. Or how do you stand out? This is how you stand out. And they say, no, this is too much. How do you overcome that objection?
Use history. So what we'll do with clients is we'll pull relevant case studies of both people within their brands within their industries, as well as brands in alternate industries, and show them the inflection point of choice that they made of doing something a little bit uncomfortable or that was off the normal brand thing, and then the results that it had. So it's science in a way. Like, listen, there's always a bit of risk that you're taking, and it's marketing, it's creative, but there's history and data to back up everything. And so I find that as long as you take clients along that journey, and show them you're not just being like, hey, I think we should do this random idea that you wake up one day. No, there's a lot of thought put into it and a lot of reason why. And that's why we're really big on, like, clients have to tell us what their business objectives are, because it's one thing to be like, oh, we just need to be better at marketing, but no, like, what are your business objectives? And then marketing supports those business objectives, because we can create a great campaign, but if a business objective is to get strategically acquired by some XYZ company in the next 18 months, it doesn't matter what creative campaigns we're coming up with. You need to be doing your marketing to support that business goal. And I think that's what sometimes gets lost with a lot of firms, is that they're just like, we just want to be good marketers and like show you a lot of traction. Like, yeah, that's great. And how is it supporting the actual overall business objective that that company is going for?
That's so true. So let's say a company wants to sell in 18 months. What will be the marketing campaign for that? Like, how the marketing will support that?
Well, it depends what industry they're in. It depends what an acquisition would look like for them. Are they going for strategic? Is it that they need to show seasonal revenue increases? Is it that they need to show optics? So it's again really nuanced to that company and their specific objectives. And I think we've been in business for 16 years. Like, and one of our differentiators is, we always say, like, right stage, right strategy. Like, not all marketing should be done to everyone every time. Like, you need the right strategy based on the right stage that you're in. And so it's looking at that and then coming up with a marketing strategy to support it. And actually, to be honest, doing less marketing than companies would think, because everyone's always like, we got to do everything all at once. And we constantly preach, no, you don't. In fact, that is detrimental if you're trying to do too many things. So we really focus on that right stage, right strategy approach. And it's helpful, like smart brands that are sitting there saying, we want to be acquired by this strategic in 18 months. Well, great. We're going to build an entire strategy around supporting that acquisition. And we'll back it up by timelines. And we're going to be in this trade publication at this point. You need to go to this conference at this point. This is what you're going to do at this point. Your marketing campaign is going to talk to this segment here. We're going to geo-target for the, like, it's really detailed in the way that we approach it. And I think that's what makes a good strategic marketing partner. It's not
Absolutely.
just a spray and play.
That's exactly right. So it's not all over the place. It's just like throwing things, spaghetti against the wall, whatever sticks. It doesn't work, and it's a waste of money. So what you're describing is so spot on, and it applies to any part of business. So marketing has to be that way. Operation has to be that way. Even your hiring decisions, your HR has to be that way, in terms of very strategically aligned to one goal, so you can accomplish that. So I love that. I think it's definitely a good practice, good strategy.
Exactly.
So let's talk about risk and failure. You said, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not playing big enough. How do you find yourself, like, how do you know that you are too comfortable and it's time to take on bigger risks, maybe fail a time or two to learn from it? Like, what is it internally or objectively outside, that you look at and you go, you know what, I'm just too comfortable. It's been a few months, need to do something else or take on more.
I mean, I think it comes down to self-awareness, because I think there's a flip side of that coin, that you can be someone who takes too many risks, or you're constantly having shiny spoon syndrome and you're driving your team absolutely mad. So there's a fine line, and I will put the caveat that you need to have some self-awareness on where you sit on the spectrum of risk and new ideas. But for people who tend to be a little bit risk adverse, or don't know when they're hitting, a plateau, it's your revenue should be, if we're looking at it from a business standpoint to start with. I can talk about it on the personal side, but like, let's talk just on business. So if your sales have been, maybe you were 30% year-over-year growth, and then you were 25, and then 20, and then you're all of a sudden hovering at this like 12% growth, and you should be back at your 20-25% growth, but you've been there for a few quarters or a year or two, like, you're too comfortable. And also, like, what tends to happen is that when you get to a certain stage where you're out of that doer stage in operations, and the business is now all of a sudden working on its own. In fact, it's working better without you in it, and the team's doing well and all this stuff, and you're just, maybe you're having some time back, and like, that's great. But what value contribution are you doing to, like, get your organization prepared for the next level? And listen, maybe it's that's where you want it, and you're focusing on something else, and then that other thing is going to be what makes you uncomfortable. But like, you need to constantly be growing as an individual, that transformation piece. And it doesn't have to be all the time huge overhauls and like putting yourself at financial risk and like burning out your staff. It's not that. It's just, how are you constantly looking to evolve and grow and test and iterate? And it can be done on a small scale. But I see a lot of people get really complacent, and then all of a sudden a couple quarters go by and they're like, why are we not doing well? Why is this taking a back burner? Because the leading indicators were there. You just didn't pay attention to them when you should have.
That is so true. So let's go back to that point that you were mentioning, that the business is running without you. So, we are all about processes and procedures. So I'm totally about giving the freedom to the founders so they can then play whatever they want to play, right? They can create, they can have the ability to get to the next level, do what they really want to do. How did you accomplish that for your own? I mean, you have two companies, you're a founder of two companies. How did you accomplish it for yourself, not to be the operator or the doer anymore?
So, I mean, a lot of trial and error, but so I sold my agency in 2021, and when I sold it, I was forced to remove myself from the operations because I had to go take a role in the parent company that bought us. And so at that point, I really removed myself from the operations. Now, it didn't do very well, but there was a whole bunch of factors that added up to that. And then fast forward a few years later, the company was restructuring, the parent company was restructuring, and then my business became up for sale again, which is not an uncommon story. Like, it happens more often than one would think. And so I was able to buy it back. And so when I went and bought it back, I didn't put myself back into the doing operation mode. I came back from a high level and I went right into finance. Like, that is an area that I feel like a founder always needs to be aware of and hands-on. And I elevated the team, even if it was painful, because I wanted to go back in and micromanage accounts. I didn't. And I think that, listen, me selling it gave me that impetus to extract myself from operations. But I do think that part of the regular growth strategy is there's that certain point when a founder is able to remove themselves from operations, even if they haven't sold. And usually that's the get comfortable being uncomfortable. You feel like you can't. You feel like you're needed for absolutely everything. And so it's so comfortable for you to be in there because you're just so valid and so needed. But if you can get yourself uncomfortable by getting out, letting a few things fail, but then you'll watch that the systems will pick up and they'll usually do better without you there, which is also another blow to ego, but it's a good thing. And then it's from that point where you're then able to sit there and say, okay, now what does this business need to get us to the next stage of growth? And maybe you're looking at, like that conference we were at, you're looking at acquisitions or doing a roll up or a strategic exit. And like at that stage, when you're out of operations, you should be looking, and you're also a little bit more in your mature growth cycle as a business, but you need to be looking at like, what's next? Like, because you're not going to stay growing on your own forever without any innovation. Like and that's what I think a founder needs to be doing, is like innovating at that stage and seeing what else they can do. Maybe it's adding another product line. Maybe you're like a little bit of research and development mode. Maybe it's acquisitions. Maybe it's sales. Like who knows? But it's all going to be unique for your company based on your stage.
That's right. So you do have to have that space to be the strategic planner, to be that visionary and not be a doer. But I think what you're describing is, you had to, something forced you. There was an external circumstance that forced you out of being the doer. And then you were smart not to go back into it. So with your new company, with your other company, the skincare products, did you go in to be a doer, or did you just stay as the visionary, as the CEO?
So that one's a little bit different. So that was a company that was for sale. It was a large biotech company. They created this, they discovered this novel ingredient. They started a skincare line. They put millions into R&D and building this brand out. And then they were going on to sell. So they were just getting rid of their the skincare brand. So when I came in and acquired it, I was acquiring inventory, IP, formulations, but I wasn't acquiring like a whole working company with full-on staff. So when I acquired that, yeah, I went in. Like I was in the doer mode and all that. But at that point, I'd already sold my other company and I'd been out of doer mode for so long, I needed to get uncomfortable being in a brand new industry, because I was coming from a services-based background in marketing to now a product-based business in skincare. And so, yeah, I became a doer because that was my new level of uncomfortability. And it was brutal. Like, I had to learn supply chain logistics. I'm like dealing with glass issues from Korea, formulation issues, testing. Like, it was a whole new set of problems that, because of the way that I acquired the company, I was forced into it, which I needed to be anyways, because I needed to learn it. And yeah, it's been wild.
I bet. How do you manage your time between two companies?
Well, the nice thing is that the operational backbones can support each other. So, there's some shared financials, some shared operations, all of that. Also the marketing team is able to work on things a little bit. But I'm definitely more on the strategy side of Jive for our clients and the sales side, but more on the day-to-day nitty-gritty operations side in the skincare company. So I should like time track, but I don't know. It's probably one day I'm 90% Jive, one day I'm 90% Verify. It just depends on what's going on.
That makes sense. Lindsay, what's the future like? What's in the plans in terms of keeping yourself uncomfortable?
I think it applies to business, but I think also personal life. And, one of the things I was saying at that conference is that I think business for a lot of entrepreneurs and executives also is that business is personal growth, right? Like if, building your business is an extension of working on yourself and, where you fall short or areas that you can improve. So I feel like sometimes I'm exhausted at like constant transformation mode of, okay, what can we unearth now? And there's like never a shortage of things of, the universe will show you, this is where you fall short. And so yeah, a combination of both personal as well as the businesses.
Yeah, it's continual growth. So long as that is happening, then it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Lindsay, if our listeners would like to get a hold of you, know more about your marketing company or your skincare product or yourself, like what's the best way to get a hold of you?
My last name is very hard to pronounce, but at Lindsay Nahmiache is available on all things, but Jive is the name of the marketing company and Verify is the name of the skincare company. So if any of those three routes, people will be able to find any information.
Absolutely. And we'll have it in the show notes as well. Well, Lindsay, it's been a great conversation and thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Thanks, Adi. So nice to chat with you.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.